Good evening, boys and ghouls. Welcome to Where the Scary Things Are. I'm your host, Monster Mash Ken, and with me is my co-host, the Mistress of Darkness, the Queen of Fright, the Lady of the Night, Muse. How you doing tonight, lady?
I'm good. Sweating over here. It's 90 degrees in Michigan. It's officially summer.
So we're here on the screens, but Muse is just a voice. She's like a hidden
voice.
spirit, right? And her beauty is just it's too beautiful for you guys to look at. Like, like the movie Dogma where Alanis Morissette, like, they couldn't speak because you couldn't handle her voice. So it's opposite with you. We just can't see you, which is cool. So I got a good question for you. With it pertains to the guests we're going to have on, which I'll get into later on. If you were to compile a Mount Rushmore of Scream Queens, who would you put on that list?
Well, I talked about her a few days ago because she just had a birthday. Adrienne Barbeau, for sure. Mm-hmm. Love her. She's done so many great horror roles, and she's still involved in horror, which I think is so awesome. She's still really passionate, like all of us are. Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, definitely. She's Scream Queen. Just absolute Scream Queen. I like Amy Steele. She's probably my favorite final girl of all of the different horror movies in Friday the 13th Part 2. And Heather Langenkamp, of course, Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street would probably be my top four for sure.
That's solid. I'm actually impressed that you knew that there were four on a Mount Rushmore. So.
Shut up. Dude, we'll go head to head on some history trivia, bro. Oh, man, I can't wait to meet you one day. I'm bringing trivia.
All right. Also joining us is the man, the myth, the legend, Chris the Creature ZC from ZC Emporium for B Movies. How are you doing tonight, young man?
I'm doing wonderful. I was looking forward to this all day. It's like a little kid waiting to open up Christmas presents. And finally, we're here, and I am just thrilled.
Yeah, I am too. I'm really excited. Obviously, it's always great. It's not Tuesday as normal, but it's Thursday night, and any night is good to talk horror with your friends. Also joining us is from the depths of Florida, the man behind PromoteHorror.com, Horo. How you doing? What's doing?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm here as usual, thinking about 2020. Thinking about the purchases I've made, and the worst one definitely has to be a 2020 day planner, because what the hell do I need to write down? Stay in quarantine, stay in quarantine, stay in quarantine. It makes no sense. So I'm guessing the rest of 2020 is going to be shit too. So I'm just going to burn the thing. I mean, why not?
Right into the garbage.
In the garbage.
Next time you visit alligators, you just go, I'm just going to go ahead and jump in.
It's just going to chuck the book right at it, and then maybe myself right after.
Yeah. At least, chicks dig scars, so you'll have something to talk about in 2021,
If we ever get there.
If we make it, we'll see what happens. We'll be all right. When you got friends like you guys, it'll be all right. So we're very excited to be here with you guys. As always, we have a fantastic show planned for you. So please follow us on social media at Scary Things Pod on Twitter and also on Facebook. Please hit that like button on YouTube, follow on YouTube, and catch our shows, our live shows, or go back and listen. We definitely want to hear from you. If you add a comment or something like that, we'll definitely reply. Check out our website, wherethescarythingsare.com. Email any of us if you have any questions, if you want us to talk about something specific. We want to hear from you. All our shows are kind of pre-planned out, and anything goes once we hit that live button or record button. So you're on your own. So as for our show tonight, our lineup's going to be great. We have a really cool guest for you, Debbie Rochon from so many different movies. She's going to be joining us on the second half of the show, so probably about an hour from now. She truly is a Scream Queen. She's been in, I think, over 100-something horror films, and it was hard to pick one for me to watch. So, but I know what we're going to do here, and we're just going to talk about a little bit of everything. Chris is going to review a really cool movie. Muse is going to talk about some stuff, too, with her and horror as well. So we'll jump into that in the second half of the show. As normal, I'll be kicking off the show with the Killer Beer of the Week and the horror movie flashback. Muse will present her Sinister Six. Chris is going to talk about the movie, which we just spoke about, and Horo is going to talk remakes that piss him off, or maybe not. We'll see what kind of mood he's in. So I want to jump right into the Killer Beer of the Week. This is what I'm drinking. This is a melon cart beer. It's a watermelon wheat ale with notes of honeydew and cantaloupe. Really, really great summer beer. If you're sitting outside and you want a good beer, this is the one. So I'm going to crack this bad boy open real quick. And that is delightful. You know, I cheated and I had to have one before I started the show, so I had a couple of them. And they come in this great 12-pack box that you can get different flavors. So I got pineapple and mango, which I will be drinking later on, so sit tight for that. As for the horror movie flashback, you know, there was a lot of different movies that had came out. I believe this week, Psycho had came out, the original Psycho 1960. I think... if I remember right, Ghostbusters had came out. Ghostbusters 2 came out recently. The follow-up, which I didn't see, but American Mary. It was American Psycho. Was it American Mary? I think that was the remake that had came out. A few birthdays, but it's a really cool week for horror movies this week. With that said, let's dive right into Muse's Sinister Six.
Okay, well, this week we're interviewing Debbie Rochon, like we talked about, and she plays in so many great horror movies. She's a great scream queen. She's also played some villains, and I guess you could say bad roles as well as in some of the horror movies. And so I thought it would be fun to give you guys my Sinister Six favorite female horror villains. Now, again, I'm going to probably ask you guys. We have a little more time this week, so be thinking about who some of your favorite horror villains are. I'll kind of weigh back in with you guys after I run down this top six list. So number one is obviously going to be Mrs. Voorhees from Friday the 13th. We all know the story with Mrs. Voorhees. She's avenging her son's death, Jason, and I honestly sympathize with Mrs. Voorhees throughout the first movie. I mean, she handles things pretty insane, but I mean, she's lost her only son, and you know, due to these crazy horny teenagers, and you know, the woman is pissed, and I can't say I blame her. I mean, I definitely would be on the warpath as well. So Mrs. Voorhees is a great villain. I really loved that they had Mrs. Voorhees be the villain in the original Friday the 13th, because you didn't see a lot of female, at least that I could see, you didn't see a lot of female killers, back then. And now I may be mistaken, but I didn't see a lot of female killers. So I thought it was really progressive when I saw Mrs. Voorhees, as the killer in this. And of course, that's the big reveal at the end. And I had seen the other Friday the 13th previous to this, so I did know that Mrs. Voorhees was the killer. So the twist was kind of gone for me. But I still really enjoyed, the fact that she was just, she was jumping in. She was a great villain. So number two is going back even further than 1980 to 1971 to the character of Evelyn Draper in Play Misty for Me. And I love this film. I enjoy Clint Eastwood, and Jessica Walter, I believe, is the character that we are talking about here, or she plays the character of Evelyn Draper, and she becomes obsessed with Dave Garver, played by Clint Eastwood. And basically what happens is this is kind of like Fatal Attraction before Fatal Attraction, which is what I also loved. And of course, she's become, had this big crush on him, become obsessed with him, listening to him on the radio. He does this poetry segment. I mean, Dave Garver is definitely like a ladies' man. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's a Mac Daddy. And, you got the great 70s aesthetic vibe. You got the great music, just really kind of groovy kind of feel to the whole movie. I loved it. Clint Eastwood is styling in all his different outfits in this one. But Evelyn Draper's character, played by Jessica Walter, steals the show. I mean, she starts going ballistic on him. Of course, it starts out as kind of an infatuation. And, Clint Eastwood's character gets together with her, and he's into it at first. But then, of course, she becomes obsessed, and she starts sabotaging his business meetings. And, she's definitely not too thrilled when Dave Garver's old girlfriend, played by Donna Mills, shows back up into the picture. I think her character's name is Toby, but I love this movie. I've actually bought it on Blu-ray last year. So definitely Evelyn Draper in Play Misty for Me from 1971. If you guys missed that one, I would say go back and see that, because that's a solid thriller, more on the lines of a thriller rather than a horror. But some of the stuff that Evelyn's character in this film does is pretty horrifying. So number three has got to be Annie Wilkes from Misery. I mean, played completely over the top and batshit crazy by Kathy Bates. I mean, obviously another obsessed, kind of like love story, I guess you could say. But Annie's obviously, become obsessed with the writer Paul Sheldon, played by James Caan. She's his number one fan. She rescues him when his car goes off the road in a blizzard as he's traveling, I think, through Colorado. And she holds him hostage at her house, and, under the guise that she's nursing him back to health. But we all know how off the rails that goes. And she definitely gets pissed off when she finds out Paul is not writing the types of stories she's into anymore. He starts miswriting the character she's become obsessed with, Misery Chastain. She's not too thrilled about that. So things quickly go off the rails. And I mean, I think most of us are familiar with Misery from 1990, but if you did not see that, Kathy Bates, I believe, won an Oscar for that, and rightfully so. She was fantastic there. So number 4 is Tiffany from Bride of Chucky, played by the wonderful and beautiful Jennifer Tilly. This is one of those characters that is just a lot of fun. I mean, obviously, Tiffany's character had been involved with Charles Lee Ray before he became Chucky. They both had this fascination. They were both psychos. They had this fascination with murder and things like that. She was kind of like his Bonnie to his Clyde, I guess you could say. And they were quite the dangerous duo, I can imagine. But they're reunited in doll form in Bride of Chucky, and we've all seen that movie, so we kind of know how that goes. But it's definitely a fun character, and I love Jennifer Tilly. She's great here. She's got some great memorable scenes and lines, and she's definitely one of my favorite female horror villains. Number 5 is Asami Yamazaki from Audition. And now I have not seen this one yet, actually. So I'm going to give you a brief rundown of Asami. And basically, I think Audition came out in 1999. And it's about, hold on, let me pull it up really fast. I just want to make sure that I'm talking about the right thing here. But Asami from Audition. So she's basically, I guess Asami, like I said, I've not seen this one. So Asami has basically went through a lot in her childhood. And she starts to basically take it out on a lot of the men that she comes in contact with. And I don't want to ruin too much of the story even for myself, so I didn't read too heavily into this one. But she basically starts taking out her frustrations and the different things that happen to her on the men that she comes in contact with, and she's punishing them and torturing them. But I've been told that Audition is definitely one of those movies I definitely need to see as a horror fan. And I was definitely intrigued by this one. I did hear it's a slow burn, but I'm definitely not afraid of a slow burn. But I've heard she's absolutely phenomenal in this role, and absolutely, this is one I absolutely need to see. So I would definitely say, if you have not seen Audition, like me, I would recommend definitely checking it out. It's definitely one. I'm not sure if it's on Shudder, but I want to say it is. But I think it was at one point, so I definitely want to check that out on a streaming platform. And the last villain of mine is going to be Valek from the Conjuring universe, as well as the spin-off, The Nun. And so basically what's happened here, I mean, with Valek, is, we all know her from the Conjuring universe. And she did the spin-off in The Nun. She was played brilliantly by Bonnie Aarons. She was kind of like, she was also featured in the first Conjuring as well as the second. And you see her more in a visual form in the second Conjuring. And of course, the spin-off from The Nun. And I believe she has a role in the Crooked Man. I think that's come out. I'm not sure. I've not seen the Crooked Man yet, but I seem to have remembered something like that as well. So Valek is definitely probably my last favorite horror villain, one of my more recent favorites on this list. She was just, I know there's mixed reviews on The Nun, and I watched half of it, and it's definitely a slow burn, but I did enjoy it, although I can kind of see, maybe it not being for everybody. But I absolutely loved her in the Conjuring universe as well. The Conjuring movies, definitely a really chilling character. The makeup was great. The acting was superb, just fantastic. So that's my top 6 favorite female horror villains. So I'm going to swing it back around to you guys and ask you who some of your favorites female horror villains are. And I'm going to start with Chris.
Hey, I jotted down about 4 names. As soon as the show's over, I'll think of 40 more. But, you mentioned Debbie Rochon. If you ever saw the movie Axe to Grind, she is terrific in that, and a lot of beautiful actresses will suffer awfully because of that. And if you see Axe to Grind, the sequel is about to be shot, so definitely see Axe to Grind. Second, the Hammer vampires, and the first one coming to mind is Ingrid Pitts. She was a vampire in a couple of movies who bit a lot of other nubile young women. Lady Dracula was one of them, where she played Elizabeth Bathory. Third is she didn't stay a villain, but Mila Jovovich's nemesis in, I think, Resident Evil 4, and that is Ada Wong, played by Bing Bing Lee. And then a couple of more Asian ones, Michelle Kwan in the movie Wonder Woman, Women, a plural. That's from a late 60s drive-in movie. She plays a mad scientist bent on taking over the world. And let's go all the way back to the 1930s for Unnameable, who I believe she was sort of the Asian Chinese nemesis. And was it the Charlie Chan movies or the Fu Manchu movies? She was a number of those. So that's just a short list. Like I said, I could probably write a book about this. Maybe I will.
I love that idea because female villains are so much fun. You know, you just get to see them do all kinds of crazy stuff and everything like that. I mean, I love a good scream queen and final girl, but I always, female villains stir the pot. Yes. They get the story going, and you have to have a good villain to make a great plot and story. So, what about you, Ken? What were some of your favorite female horror villains?
Wow. I'm trying to think, and all I can think about, and I think we spoke about it before, was Amelia Kincaid.
I almost said her too. Obviously Linnea Quigley's character too in that movie, but was it Prom Night, right? Night of the Demons. Sorry, and I just remember that was just terrifying to me. I mean, obviously, my big one is Linda Blair and Reagan. That's like, that's in a category of its own. But if I had to go, left field, it would probably be Night of the Demons with Amelia Kincaid, just because it brings back a lot of cool memories, and that poster and that whole movie was just rad. The makeup was cool. She was scary as shit, Yeah. I can't. There was another movie and from my childhood that scared me, and I think it was called The Unnameable. Do you remember that? Yep. I do.
Yeah.
I remember the VHS cover to that. It's like some kind of creature.
Right. Yeah. And it just scares the crap out of me. So I can't. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to go back and look. And but yeah, I mean, I like that. The big one there is definitely Reagan from The Exorcist, and then I'd have to go with Amelia Kincaid's character in Night of the Demons. How about you, Horo? We may have lost Horo.
Hey, here's one. Princess Ardella from the Buck Rogers in the 25th Century TV series. She was
all right. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, that's what Horo would have said.
Yeah, I think he dropped out. He pulled one of my numbers where like I lose connection or what have you. But yeah, definitely some great villains out there, horror female villains. And I think I see some in the comments here. Of course, Angela from Sleepaway Camp, Felissa Rose's character. We just had her on last week.
Oh, obviously.
One of our viewers, one of the viewers there in the comments watching the live stream said her character. Mm-hmm. So, and Julia from Hellraiser, they said too.
Oh, yeah.
So those are some great ones. So yeah, great picks out there to some of the viewers. So yeah, Horo's back, I think. Are you back?
It's Florida internet,
Florida
I was going to ask you who some of your favorite female horror villains are.
Florida internet is crap. Florida internet is a woman villain out here somewhere. I don't know.
There's your female villain.
That is a terrible one right there. You're not going to get worse than that. And I know Florida Man does a lot of crazy stuff out there too.
Yeah.
You want to check that out on Twitter. Holy shit. Let's see. I was trying to think of some newer ones, and I was thinking Baby from Devil's Rejects. She's absolutely insane. I know one that some guys like is Jennifer, and obviously Jennifer's Body.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Great villain.
Yes. It's nice to have a good-looking one too. And
right.
And one on the flip side is Mary Shaw from Dead Silence.
I love that.
I love Dead Silence. So
I actually saw Dead Silence last year for the first time, and I'm like, where have I been? That is such a great. That's an underrated horror movie. I don't hear that one talked about enough. And Mary Shaw is one of those villains you don't hear about enough either. She does such a great job. Just a great. Especially if you're scared of like dolls and whatever marionettes, and I always found marionettes and puppets really creepy as hell. And, I remember seeing the movie Dolls from the 1980s as a little kid. And I mean, after watching that, I used to always like rip my dolls up and stuff when I would get mad about something, and I was just so super nice to my dolls after seeing that movie, because I was like, okay, yeah. As a little kid, I was like, I don't want them coming back to life to kill me. I'm good on all that. So
we need a Dead Silence Part 2. That is one I want.
For sure, for sure. Okay, so that's my Sinister Six. There's some great choices out there from the viewers as well as you guys. So I'm going to hand it back to Ken.
Well, yeah, great. I wish I would have known because I would have thought about it, but I'm glad that Horo jumped in at the minute there and saved the day because Jennifer's Body. I mean,
Yeah.
Megan Fox is a fox, and Chris concurs, I'm sure. But there's so many. If you look at women in horror, and you can't have. I shouldn't say you can't, but it's hard to get a really good horror movie without having that awesome female lead. It just is, and then at the end she always turns into a badass. I don't know if anybody mentioned Celine. I don't know if that's really considered if she was Celine from Underworld. Right.
Action horror for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah. Anyway, good stuff, Muse, as always with the Sinister Six, and we're gonna jump into remakes that piss horror off.
Yes, okay. So before Florida swallows me again, going to take a look at Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Basically, somebody mentioned this in the chat yesterday when I was in there. So I thought, okay, let's do this one. So 1974 versus the 2003 version. Of course, there's tons of other Texas Chainsaw Massacres out there, some good, some bad. And, everybody has their own opinion on them, but those are the two that we're going to be comparing here. Obviously, the 1974 is a classic, obviously done by Tobe Hooper, and we all know about that one a lot. But, let's look at some similarities and differences here, and then we can kind of judge which one we like more. Basically, we have the same kind of setup here. We have a couple of, young people here in a van driving to God knows where for whatever reason. Doesn't really matter the reasons at this point. They end up broken down or pulled over for different reasons, and Leatherface comes and basically starts picking them off. That's the quick version. So basically, the big difference here, it starts early on with the Hitchhiker. In the original, we saw a very crazy guy jump in the car, and he's got obviously alternative motives here. But in the remake, we have a young woman who obviously is a little freaked out, and something has gone wrong with her. And the big difference here is she blows her head off. So that is a quite a change. So as good as the original scene is, and as crazy as that guy is, there's nothing like a person basically taking a gun to their face there early on in a closed environment like a van. So that basically sets a huge tone for this movie early on. Obviously, we have different kind of similar but different set of characters here. We don't have a handicapped person in this movie. I guess, credit to the original in that. You don't see, a lot of handicapped people in movies, in horror movies. You don't see that said. I think in one of the later Chucky's, the girl is either deaf or blind, I think. And that's always a credit when you can kind of add different characters who can bring a different set to the movie. Although Franklin in the wheelchair really does nothing. He's just there. And Leatherface is just like, okay, you're dead. But they do have an odd character or two in the group. But obviously, two guys who look like they can at least hold up against Leatherface better, but in turn they don't, which kind of jumps me right to the kills. Obviously, this one is done in a more bloodier version, obviously a more updated version. We kind of talked about it with The Hills Have Eyes. The kills here are just, a little bit more extreme, a little bit more at you. The original is kind of, more of an atmosphere kind of thing when they do the kills, and more of an intimidation there. But one of the things that always freaked me out, and both versions do it, is when he picks the person up and puts them on a hook. That just seems so freaking painful. Yeah. I don't even know, how to begin with that. And he does it in both movies, and that alone is crazy. There is, obviously a scene where we see him cut the face off in this one, and I believe he cuts the leg off the one guy. So it does go to a little bit more extreme in this movie, whereas the original, he does go at it, but it's not about the blood and the guts. It's more of and what you love about the original is just basically the way it's shot. and it creates just that such a atmosphere there in the old style. And this one is obviously newer, crisper, and so forth. But then they give you the kills there. This one obviously you have Aaron, who is very different than Sally. Sally is basically, by the time Leatherface and then catch her, she's terrified, she's freaked out, she has it's surprising that she even gets away. She is just so much in shock, whereas Aaron seems a little bit more capable here. She is freaked out to a point, but she seems to be handling the situation a lot more, and kind of shows you a flip here in two aspects of women in horror these days. You have someone in 1974 who's basically, hey, she basically got lucky that she survived pretty much. Whereas you have here a female character who is definitely more capable and maybe has puts more effort into actually her escape than luck. She actually at one point cuts off Leatherface's arm, which if you're thinking about doing more movies made no sense, but okay, they did it anyway. And kind of presents a different ending to this movie. So you have two different endings to the movie. Obviously the classic where Leatherface is in the street and he's jumping up and down because he just let her go, and we have the big semi that comes. And in this one, Aaron actually goes back and rescues a child. So again, you have very different characters here in the way they approach. Sally just wants to escape, while Aaron is still trying to make good of a terrible situation that she's put in, while seeking revenge and obviously. And you have different families here. One of the things you'll see in the remake, you don't have Grandpa. You have a character that's kind of like Grandpa, but he's on the wheelchair, doesn't really do a whole bunch. Basically, the star of this film, in my mind, is the sheriff. He's one of my favorite characters, obviously a welcome addition and one of the terrific bright spots of the remake. And obviously, you know this guy from Full Metal Jacket and so forth. But he's such a great presence in other movies as well. So he is just a welcome addition to this movie. And even when you have those moments without Leatherface, he just dominates the film. You could have almost done a movie with the crazy sheriff and had him go around, and that would have worked. One of the interesting things here is they never really push the fact that they're cannibals on you. And the original you kind of do, because you have that whole dinner scene where they have Sally strapped down and ready to feed Grandpa. And in this one, you never really get to that. There might be hints of that, but it's never really as clear that they are cannibals, more like just crazy people. And in this one, I think one of the things that I learned while looking at this one is that is a rare time in the remake that you actually get to see Leatherface's face without the mask. There is a scene there where he's kind of sitting down in the corner, and you can kind of basically see his face, which is something you don't see in the original, and something you don't really see in many of the sequels. It's a very rare sight. So they took a risk there, and they did that, whether you like that or not. So there is the good, there is the bad in this movie. I'm not a hater of it. I actually liked this one and the 2006 version. Obviously, the classic is the classic, and it is what set the stage for it. And I think the big difference is you have two different time periods here, and it's just a different way of doing the movie. I don't, and I'm not going to slam the remake. And this remake, obviously, it kind of opened the door for doing other slasher movies, remakes, and so forth. So if you want to blame something, you might want to blame this one because it was done rather well. But obviously the original is the original. And, I guess they take different approaches with Leatherface and some of the things there. But, like I said, I think the classic's the classic. And our book, I'm sure what you guys are probably going to say is something similar as far as the original. But I guess, where the remake falls in your guys' eyes is what I'm curious about. So I'll throw it to you guys, and I guess I'll throw it to Ken first.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought this one up. You're on a roll, man. This one did not piss you off. So, yeah. Cracker Jacks.
It is weird. It is working backwards. As much as I complain about remakes, I'm finding out that I don't hate them as much. So it is a weird experiment that we're doing here.
It just goes, there's other things to be pissed off about other than remakes. So it's funny. I think it was, what you said, it was 2003, I think, right? Or something like that. Yeah. So Jessica Biel, obviously, I think she was just becoming who she was going to be as far as star power, because she got really popular. But I thought she was great as Erin. You mentioned how she was more tougher, right? And I like that. I definitely like that a lot. The cast was great. Leatherface was cool looking too. The way they did him, and what was it? What's the sheriff's name? Robert Lee or something like that, or Lee Ernie? I don't remember.
Emery.
Yeah. And obviously the scene from Full Metal Jacket. That's like horror in its own way, right? That's scary, right? But no, I one thing that I really loved about this movie that's not brought up a lot is the music, the that sound, and I can't do it, but it adds to the flavor of, this movie's going to be fucking rad and scary. And the way it was shot, it looked like everything was dirty. Not that like in the original how it was. The original, obviously, it looked dirty as well, but it was just like everybody's sweaty and it probably smelled of body odor and old flesh and whatever. And there's scenes there that it was really well done remake. From the opening scene with I think it was like the footage of the sheriff or whatever, somebody going in, or the officer going in, and then you see Leatherface there or whatever. But no, I loved it. I definitely agree with you. This is a great remake. Definitely not better than the first one. The first one it stands the test of time. Great remake. I give it 2 thumbs up. I'm gonna throw it over to Muse on this one. Okay. Maybe we'll throw it over to Chris. She's here. She's alive.
I had to unmute myself. Ken said a lot of what I was going to say. Stole my total answer, kind of like with like the gritty feel of the movie and just kind of like that griminess that the film really captured. And I think you guys might have lost me.
No, well, you're there.
Okay.
There it is.
There we go.
I'm like, now I got swallowed. Okay.
You got to shake it a little bit,
Yeah, I'm just like tap, tap, tap. Okay. But Ken kind of stole my answer a little bit, but we think a lot alike, so that kind of comes with the territory. But yeah, the cast is great. Arlie Ermy was like Horo said, was a great addition. I mean, his presence is just a force all by itself. I mean, I loved him, like you guys said, in Full Metal Jacket. But I think that the biggest thing for me was probably, just like the whole scene. I really like the crime scene photos in the beginning.
Yeah.
Had kind of like that realness to it. And we kind of got like a little bit of a preface at the beginning of the 74 version. But the pictures really kind of just bring it to life, like what actually happened and the crimes and the reality of it and everything. So I really like kind of like the true crime aspect there in the beginning. Like Ken said, the music was great. The setting was just absolutely classic in some spots. But yeah, this one, the original still shocks me more. Like I'll watch the original now, and I'm still shocked. My mouth is hanging open for half of the movie because I'm just like, what? I remember I was watching it a while back. I think it was last summer. I try to watch it every summer. It's kind of part of my summer viewing ritual. And I was watching it at like 3 a.m. because if I watch it when everybody's up, they're like, what in the hell is this? I remember.
Wild.
Yeah, my mom got up to get something to drink. It's like 3 a.m., and she's like, yeah, I'm leaving. Because it was right in the middle of all the mayhem. But yeah, it's such a classic thing. I think the Hitchhiker, even though the remake had the Hitchhiker scene, where it was still really shocking in its own way, there was something about the Hitchhiker in the first one. And I think it was just the fact that you thought he was going to be okay, like he seemed a little strange, but then he pulls out this razor and he starts cutting on himself. He's just really just freaking you out. It kind of like creeps up on you. And again, with the whole picking up the Hitchhiker thing, I still have bad vibes about that. So that really kind of messed with me as well. But Texas Chainsaw was one the 74, I saw some classic horror movies that kind of later in life, because my mom was kind of strict with some of it. I mean, she definitely didn't let me see. I was an adult before I saw the original Texas Chainsaw. And yeah, I would see different horrors, but Texas Chainsaw was not something my mom was going to allow in the house. So I was like 18 or 19 when I finally saw it. And I mean, it was just as shocking to me as it would have been, you know, in any decade. So definitely, I like the remake, but the original still reigns supreme for me. But I love the remake, and I'm a big fan of Jessica Biel as well. So I loved seeing her in the lead character there. But yeah, just it's a great remake. I thought it was actually a really, really great effort.
How about you, Chris? How about Chris? Now that we've said everything.
I'm like, I probably stole somewhat of Chris was going to say.
Jessica Biel. She was in the Blade sequel too, wasn't she?
Oh yeah, Abby. Abby Whistler.
Yeah, you know, I have the exact same answer for you as a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the Evil Dead and the Evil Dead remake. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1973 with John Larroquette doing the opening narration.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Opens with in the casket with the waxy corpse, and you don't realize what it is till about 3 minutes later. But you know, we're going to be talking about that forever. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003, I guess that's 30 years later. Yeah, good movie, enjoyed it, great. Jessica Biel's great, but we're not going to be talking about that 30 years later.
Great point. Great point.
So, no discredit to the remake on its own. It's terrific. But if you had to put the two of them together, all your quotes that you spew are going to be from the 1973 one.
Yes.
Good point. You know, one thing I got to make fun of my brother-in-law. We had this. He's not scared of anything. We just made fun of him. But my sister and I, both my sisters and I, we'd always want to watch the 2003 one. And whenever the music came on, we would just mimic it and make fun of him because he would always want to leave the room. Like, this is stupid. Why do you guys want to watch this? And like, you don't think it's stupid. You're just scared. You can't handle it. But yeah, a shout out to Dismay as well. Dismay and I, you know, we have our little. I wouldn't say sister because Muse is my sister online, but Dismay's probably like my cousin that I like to argue with, you know.
Yeah.
And she's a big Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I love that. I mean, horror. I did want to just reiterate one thing that you did say is when he throws him on the meat hook. I mean, can you imagine that? Like, you're not dead, but you know what's going on. Like, oh shit, I'm impaled onto a meat hook right now.
And it's even more painful when you see somebody, you know, trying to grab it and pull themselves up, and they kind of move, and you're like, and then drop themselves, and you're like, no.
Yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I get itches in my, like, you can't itch back there, you know, but give me a meat hook and I'll be good. So, yeah, great remake review, however you want to say that.
Yeah.
What else? What's going on in the news world?
The news. Okay, I'll hit you with a couple of things, and then I guess we'll leave the best news for last, or the most important. The trailer for The Rental by IFC Films is out now, and that'll be coming out in late July, I believe, on the 24th. So that's something to look forward to. You know, it's starting to open up now. Movies are coming back. Some in drive-ins, some in actual theaters. And definitely more in DVD and on demand and so forth. So you guys who have been missing out, it's coming. I've been working hard. So, you know, it is coming. More movies are coming. And here's one that may not interest anybody, but it is happening. And that is Deep Blue Sea Part 3. Why? I don't know.
Oh, come on.
You know, this is going to be another low budget, probably one, and that'll be on Blu-ray, I believe, in August. But the trailer is now out. So just for Chris.
You know, Samuel L. Jackson's death in the first one had to be one of my favorite death scenes in the movie. I don't know if you've ever heard of
I have no problem with the first one. The first one is awesome shark movie. Definitely one of the better shark movies out there. The sequel was bad, and I cannot imagine what they're doing in the third one. So yeah, I guess more from IFC Films. They're keeping busy is The Relic, and I guess that was supposed to come out on the 10th, but I guess they moved that up in some drive-in theaters to celebrate the 4th of July, so you can actually see that in some places on July 3rd. And that's supposed to be another creepy one. As you know, we covered The Wretched, which was really good, and that basically stole theaters and drive-in theaters money for weeks now. So it was good that we covered that one, because that one did wonderfully as being one of the only horror movies in drive-ins to see. So I guess IFC Films is trying to capitalize on that, and why not? There's going to be a third season, supposedly, of The Creep Show that is on Shudder. As you know, we've talked about it before. Season 2 is still on hold because of the virus, but they've already ordered scripts for a season 3. So it looks like we're going to have plenty of Creep Show coming at you in the future if quarantine ever leaves us. An exciting trailer was released, and that is Train to Busan Peninsula. So if you're not aware or missed that trailer, and you loved Train to Busan, which I know you do, because if you don't, we're going to send you off somewhere where they're still being quarantined, like Florida. And you need to check out that trailer, because that is hot. That is awesome. What a wild trip that is. I cannot wait to that movie. I still don't know when we're going to be able to see that, but that is exciting there. And I guess the biggest and most interesting news, and kind of going back to the whole remake thing, because I like to bring you remake news, is that Clive Barker is now interested in getting the rights back to Hellraiser, obviously in Pinhead and some of the Cenobites. So obviously this plays an effect on, we've talked about before, a new Hellraiser movie and TV show. So, I don't want to get into the legals of it, and that's not my expertise here, but from what I understand is they can still do a movie or TV show as long as they do it before a certain date in December of 2021. So the crunch is on, I guess. That is, of course, unless Clive, works everything out with them. I guess that's still a possibility. But I know we've talked about it several times, talked about it, here and elsewhere, about the Hellraiser movie, both the TV show and the remake or whatever the hell they're going to do. But, now that's in jeopardy, and now it may or may not happen. But interesting news there. And we all know Friday the 13th has been tied up for a long time now. God only knows when we'll see another Friday the 13th. So that's another legal battle here. So, I guess there's one way to stop remakes, and that is in the legal system. So, that's the news. So throw it to you guys and your reaction to any of those things.
Good stuff. I know that you mentioned on Twitter, we see it on Twitter as well, is Ashley Lawrence and Doug Bradley joining Joe Bob coming up soon. That'll be, definitely check that out. I could only wish one day that all four of us with Casey would get to that level with Joe Bob in the last drive-in with Darcy. It's such a cool show and concept, and I dig it. I really do. But hopefully, with what Doug Bradley's doing, and then they work out the Hellraiser thing with Clive Barker and whatnot, we get to see something new but old at the same time. Kind of like what happened with, like you said, with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So, good stuff from Horror on Promote Horror. Chris, let's get right into your review of what you have for us on the creature feature of the week.
Yeah, there's a Christian evangelist from Scotland named Alistair Begg. This movie is not about him, but we're going to look at Begg, B-E-G. Have you guys seen it?
No.
Yeah. I hadn't either till the other day. I was going down all these Debbie Rochon films, and there's like 25 I haven't seen. I feel bad. There's like 25 I have seen. But Begg was a 2011 movie. Let me just read you some of the cast. Debbie Rochon, who plays a witch, Tiffany Shepis, Tony Todd, PJ Souls, Michael Berrien, Christina Klebe, Tony Moran. And these aren't just hi, how are you performances. They're real characters who, some of them are quite seedy, some of them die horribly, and a lot of people die horribly in this. This movie takes place in Massachusetts. And I want to talk about Debbie Rochon's performance in it and her role in it, because it is the two pieces of bread that holds the sandwich together. But to give you an idea about this movie, it's violent, it's vicious. There's got to be 30 excruciatingly horrible deaths in it. And you know how like you watch movies and every 2 or 3 minutes there's a murder? Well, in every 2 or 3 minutes there's a massacre. And you get the obligatory sorority house massacre. I grew up in Massachusetts, by the way, and women in Massachusetts did not look like that when I was up there. I would have remembered. The high school cheerleaders get wiped out. The hot tub babes get wiped out. Chainsaw, whatever, they all get wiped out. There's a common theme in this movie is if you're really good looking or mildly good looking, you're going to get wiped out. The goth gets wiped out. And the premise of the movie is Tony Moran plays a cop. He should retire. His best days are behind him. He's grouchy. If you've worked for the government, you've met these guys. Everything's bad. Everything's a conspiracy. Everything is awful. And you got to get away from these guys. And he needs to retire, but he doesn't. You know, he's a cop. He probably doesn't make a whole lot of money. And there's a cop in the Salem Police Department in Massachusetts. And you know what Salem's famous for? And we'll get to the witch in a second. He is famous, though, this guy, Tony, because he captured a serial killer a couple of years ago. Michael Berryman played a guy who captured women, tortured them, and ate them. And he's a hero. Well, another serial killer's come to town. He's trying to catch him. He's not getting anywhere. And the chief replaces him with a young buck, Steve Ryan, who's played by Daniel Stump. And Daniel Stump actually holds his own in this movie with all these. Oh, by the way, Tony Moran, Jack Fox, you know whose wife is in this movie? PJ Souls. You know why that's significant? You know who else is in this movie? Christina Klebe. You know why that's significant? Trivia for you. Linda in Halloween was PJ Souls. The remake of Halloween, which is, 10 years ago, I think, Linda was played by Christina Klebe. Now, PJ Souls will fare a lot better than Christina Klebe will in this movie. One of the few women left alive in the state of Massachusetts by the time this movie is over. So this killer captures women, ties them in some secluded cabin in the middle of nowhere and tortures them. He has a machete and he slashes them, but he doesn't slash them enough to kill them. He wants to keep them alive so he can hear them beg. And finally, he will just kill him. Now, that's separate from all the massacre stuff. I'm not quite sure why he does it doesn't matter. It looks good, and as far as gory horror movie, it plays it well. Well, there's a peculiar scene at the beginning of the movie which doesn't make sense. We're happy to see it because Debbie Rochon is in it. But Debbie Rochon is sitting alone in her house playing, I think, 1940s music. And she's very content and very happy. And then the camera pulls away from the house and two teenagers walk by. They'll be killed horribly a little later. And they say, oh, that's the Mary Goodwin house. Who's Mary Goodwin? Well, she was a witch they killed 400 years ago. They say, wait a minute, no, she's in there. Well, she's back. Well, she never left. But the town doesn't know that. You can't really kill witches. And there's a backstory, and you'll see it's horrible. Well, Jack hesitantly starts helping Steve, the new detective. Although he's bitter at being assigned or taken off the case, and bitter that a young guy with no experience has been put on it, that the killings are just multiplying and multiplying and multiplying, and any good man with any ounce of goodness in him is going to help catch the killer. But it's not going anywhere. They got some great suspects. Tony Todd is the creepy high school teacher who loves to have premarital sex with his students. Yeah, you know, in Florida. Oh,
there it
it's
is.
big in Florida, I know. This isn't Florida, though. This is Massachusetts. And you might actually get time for that in Massachusetts. But and his performance is slimy. Oh, it's like, you just want to shower after looking at him and the way he looks at his female students. But the suspects are basically any man in this movie is a suspect. Now, the killer abducts, after a very gratuitous shower scene, a very gratuitous scene with Tiffany Shepis, abducts Tiffany Shepis, who plays Alice in this movie, keeps her alive and tortures her, and her demise is very elongated and lasts throughout most of the movie. And it's one of those things, you're looking at her and what he's doing to her, just kill her, just kill her. I can't watch this. Well, you know, we had to watch it, but I just think of Tiffany Shepard who actually had to go through it. Now, I imagine she survived the movie, not her character, not even close. But anyway, one person who does who has survived up to the end, is then the next scene with Tiffany Shepis. What happens in Tiffany Shepis's next scene? Debbie Rochon's next scene, the witch, the 400-year-old witch. Not going to tell you. That'd be a spoiler. But you know from the beginning of the movie that she's coming back in some form. And it is kind of a neat ending because you're wondering throughout this whole movie, are they going to catch this guy? Because they're not really developing any clues. They're not that smart. The police officers the new guys don't trust the old guys, so nobody is telling anybody anything. And of course, this killer is just grabbing everybody. And finally, he starts grabbing women, making it a little close to home, a lot close to home for our young detective, Steve Ryan, played by Daniel Stump. And now that somebody close to Daniel Stump has been abducted, don't know if she's been killed yet, but there is an urgency now to find him. And so Jack and him go off together, and they are going to put, pedal to the metal, heads to the grindstone, or whatever, and try to find this killer, who we have no clue who it is. It doesn't really matter because the ending is kind of neat, and the ending is, I won't say it, but I'll just say that Debbie Rochon had a great scene at the beginning. She had a great scene at the end. And who exactly she is and what she's doing in Salem 400 years after they brought her off into the woods and hung her is a good question that will get answered. And so if you get a chance to see Beg, it's on Tubi TV. It's bloody, it's gratuitous, and it's not just a 92-minute movie or an 88-minute movie. You make it almost 2 hours and fit 2 dozen more deaths into it, and that's what they do here. So it'll give you your fill of slasher gratuity, and so enjoy Beg. I'm going to post a review of it tomorrow. I feel bad because I sort of insult the woman of Massachusetts on that review, but I grew up there, and I tell you, they did not look like this when I was there. I know because I know I was in high school and college up there. So. Beg from 2011. Enjoy Debbie Rochon's performance and a bunch of other B-movie and horror Hall of Famers in it as well.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a killer cast. Not to make any bad puns,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'd love to definitely check it out. So check it out, everybody. We're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back with Debbie Rochon.